Hello everyone, welcome to AtlantaFalcons.com, specifically J. Mike's Missives, the official blog of the Atlanta Falcons. I am J. Michael Moore, and today I'm here to answer some of your questions that were submitted via Voices Heard over the past couple of weeks, focusing particularly on the Falcons off-season, keeping in mind that the Scouting Combine is coming up next week, where I will be at attendance, and then right after that you have the NFL Draft, and oh yeah, mixed in with that, free agency, all coming up here very quickly. So I'm going to jump in and ask a few questions. Had more than 40 questions submitted over a few days. Thank you very much. I could not get to all of them. However, we will be doing this regularly through the offseason and particularly leading up to training camp, mini camp, as the team gets back into Flowery Branch. So we're going to get right to this and answer some of your questions. First question, the highest rated question, comes from John P17. It says, J. Mike, everyone is crazy over Peppers rumors, but for the philosophy of the Falcons to build by draft and add under the free agent radar, can you probably get two great players for the price of Peppers? Wouldn't it make more sense to go after Aaron Campman, who has just been as dominant as Peppers over the last few years, or get Clint Ingram at linebacker or a wide receiver? Well, let me first put this in perspective. And what this reader is asking about is the rumors that have been out there about Julius Peppers, who will perhaps be a free agent on the market, Carolina Panthers defensive end, great player at that, and will the Falcons show interest? First of all, extremely early to be talking about this. Right now, today is February 17th. You've got free agency not starting until March 5th. Even though Peppers has come out and said he probably doesn't want to be in Carolina, there's been a lot of reports back and forth, it doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to be out there. And in this uncapped year situation, it's unclear on how much he will ask for, what that asking price will be for a defensive end, a Pro Bowl defensive end at that. Now, look at the Falcons situation, and let's just look in free agency in general. Do you go after an Aaron Campman? Do you go after somebody else in free agency? You got every starter returning on the defensive line, along with some key reserves at that position. And you've got Thomas Dimitroff going on record saying philosophy is to build through the NFL draft and add through free agency. So I'm not saying the Falcons won't do anything in free agency. However, I would not be surprised if it's another slow year, just like it was in 2009, where Mike Peterson and Brett Romberg were the only two additions. Peterson, the starter at Lineberg, and Romberg, a key reserve on the offensive line. Maybe quieter than you would expect. Now, I know that's not what a lot of people like to hear. You want to see the big name, but that's not necessarily best because you have to worry about scheme fit, contract price, and a lot of other things when it comes to free agents. Next question, Matt1979 wants to know, first off, I want to say the Atlanta Falcons are one of the best franchises in the league. Well, Matt, on behalf of the organization, thank you very much. I'm very honored to be a fan. I was wanting to ask about the secondary and the emergency of Brent Grimes and Chris Owens. Can Atlanta pick up a veteran corner in free agency to guide these guys and help them grow? I think the secondary has great potential, but just needs a solid veteran to show them the way. Thanks. Okay, well, first of all, again, thank you very much. Glad you're supporting the Falcons. Now, second, let's talk about a veteran free agent, especially a cornerback. Last year, the name was Chris McAllister. Everybody wanted to go get Chris McAllister. Turns out he did come back for a while, but injuries shown that perhaps he was not the player he once was. The team has a veteran corner in Brian Williams, and that was the decision to go out and get him early on, late in the training camp preseason period. He comes out, signs, a former Jaguar, knows the system right away, comes in as a starter, tears his ACL, he's out for the year. He will be a free agent if the team does not re-sign him before March 5th, so that's a whole other issue. Do you re-sign that guy? But there's a veteran presence right there. Now, also, let's think about veteran presence, what you want that person to be. Corner is a position where you need bodies and you need people to play right away, whether you're number 1 on the depth chart or whether you're number 5 or 6 on the depth chart. You need to have guys that can contribute on special teams or on the field in defense and different sub-packages, etc. Corner's not a situation like backup quarterback where you can get a guy as a quote-unquote mentor. Not to say that there's not great veterans out there who are willing to do that, but it's a position you have to be particularly careful with because it is so high profile and because you need that much help and you need that much impact. Now, Brent Grimes and Christopher Owens finished the season as starters. Grimes actually led the team in interception with 6, and Owens played extremely well down the stretch, starting, I believe, the last 6 games as a rookie. Both of those guys had big plays to seal the season-ending win at Tampa. So you've got your incumbent starters returning. Now, are they going to be there because of what might happen in the draft? Will somebody else come in? Chris Houston also finished the season on injured reserve. That's one reason why a starting position was open. There's guys that are here right now who can battle around and see what happens with that position. So perhaps maybe not a position where you want to bring in a veteran presence per se. Next question, we'll go back to John P. 17. It's like, I need to know from you, J. Mike, and the Falcons finally calling Jamal Anderson and Chris Houston a bust. Are the Falcons going to move in another direction and release or trade these players? Well, John, that's a very pointed question, and one as a coach or not as a coach or not as a general manager or personnel guy that I can really answer. However, I will say, look at the history of both Jamal Anderson and Chris Houston. Both be going into their 4th year in the league in 2010. Players who have been starters really almost from day one. Now, you don't earn a starting position in this league. You don't keep a starting position in this league unless you are talented. So keep that in mind. Now, the argument can be made about those two guys just from sheer stats and numbers. Not sacks from Jamal Anderson, not a lot of interceptions from Chris Houston. It's not all about that. But you can make the case that they're not the impact players that you would want to see on a defense. I think because of that, in every position on the Falcons, there is going to be a battle. There's always going to be who can come in and who can play better, who is going to embrace competition, who's going to let competition make them a more quality football player. So those positions are key in that regard too. Now, what will happen with those two players? I don't know. I think it's going to be an open competition as always, and we'll see how that shakes out. Now, you do mention trading. I will say this, and I say this time every year. Trades in the NFL are not like Major League Baseball. They're not as easily pulled off. And you also have to consider that this uncapped year future of the collective bargaining agreement might make teams a little reluctant to take on contracts that they themselves did not create. Next question comes from Falcons fan 69214. If we lose Norwood, how do you feel would be the best way to replace him in the draft or free agent? Paraphrasing a little because I want to make sure we get some questions in. Let's talk about Jarius Norwood and let's talk about free agency. Right now, it seems unlikely he'd be a player you would lose just because he's going to be a restricted free agent in this uncapped scenario, which means the Falcons can extend a tender offer, draft pick tender, first round, third round, fifth round. You can throw out different ones. And if a team comes out and says, we want Jarius Norwood and try to sign him away, Falcons can let that happen, but they get compensation. Falcons also get a right of first refusal. That's a nutshell about a restricted free agent. Now, let's assume for a minute that for some reason he isn't on the roster next year, and there is that free agency bug that gets around with everyone. Who can we go out there and sign? A veteran. Not so fast, my friend, in the words of Lee Corso. You got a guy named Jason Snelling who came in and played extremely well for Michael Turner, took over that starting job at the end of the year, rushed for 147 yards in that season-ending win. I think opened a lot of eyes. He is on the roster, and you also have a healthy Michael Turner returning. So you do have bodies at that position. It's not a panic position, if you will, for the Falcons offense. If you were going to look at players to draft, I would look in that 3rd, 4th, 5th round range. You can get some good value at running back right there. However, I really don't see the Falcons taking a run at a running back early in the draft, considering there are needs on defense, reported needs on defense, and then also the fact the team does not have a 2nd round pick. You have to be very careful with what you do with that 1st round pick. Going to jump ahead here to a couple quick questions. ATL Jbo asks, have you seen William Moore and Pere Jerry in the building? Quick answer, yes, I've seen them both. Pere is rehabbing and William Moore has been doing a little film study, hoping to talk to those guys again soon. League Out 47 wants to know about kickers. Basically, simply put, Matt Bryan, Steve Hauschka are both on the roster for the Falcons. Those are the kickers that the team ended with after releasing Jason Elam. So those are the guys you'll see through the early on off-season progress. Not to say the team won't go out and add another body, because that is a position too I feel like there could be a little bit more competition to make sure it's more solidified after what happened last year with the struggles at long snapper and Jason Elam. Question from Milford 66 2001. Hey J Mike, what do you know about the Falcons wearing the 98 throwbacks? Well, real quick on the throwbacks, basically what's going to happen is you'll see the 1966 throwbacks for a few more years. They actually replace the team's all-black alternates. So whenever you would go to a game and expect to see the alternate jersey, you'll see a throwback, but a 66 version, not a 1998. Thanks again, everyone, for your questions. We'll talk to you again soon.